The truth has a way of breaking free, no matter the chains. Tariq Brown had always been a star, a brilliant student, a talented speaker. But when he stood up at the school debate, little did he know that it would cost him everything. Expelled under suspicious circumstances by Principal Walker, the once promising future of a young black student shattered overnight. His father James and Ms. Henderson, his most supportive teacher, quickly realized something much darker is at play, an intricate web of lies, power, and corruption. With threats against their family farm mounting and powerful forces aligned against them, they begin a dangerous battle to uncover the truth. But the more they uncover, the more perilous their fight becomes. If you stand against injustice, hit subscribe. A powerful story awaits you. Tariq had never been one to back down from a challenge. It was his reputation. Sharp mind, quick on his feet, and always ready to speak the truth. But the day he was accused of cheating during the school's prestigious debate tournament, everything changed. He could feel the eyes on him, teachers, students, all waiting for him to explain the unexplainable. The accusation was absurd. He hadn't cheated, but the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder. Principal Walker, the very man who'd always smiled at Tariq in the halls, now stood with crossed arms, eyes cold. "I'm afraid you're expelled, Tariq. You've failed to maintain the integrity of this institution." His voice didn't waver. The moment he was escorted out of the school, the feeling of betrayal was like a heavy stone in his stomach. He couldn't believe it. But as he left, he noticed something strange. A black car parked near the front gates. The tinted windows gave nothing away, but the presence lingered. Tariq's mind raced. At home, his father, James, didn't take the news lightly. "This is bigger than you think, son," he said, his voice hard with years of unspoken fear. "It's always been bigger." Ms. Henderson, his teacher, called immediately after hearing the news. "Tariq, you've got to come to me. We need to figure this out. There's something they're hiding." Tariq's world had turned upside down, and the pressure of the unknown weighed down on him. His father's warnings echoed in his mind. "They'll do anything to make sure you stay silent." The investigation into Tariq's expulsion was just the beginning. What started as a simple accusation quickly spiraled into something darker, as they uncovered a dangerous connection between Principal Walker and a powerful local billionaire, Jonathan Harris. It wasn't just a school issue. It was a fight against forces that would stop at nothing to protect their interests. And the first strike came swiftly. Tariq's family farm was set on fire. The fire was the first warning. Tariq had seen it from the window, the orange glow creeping up into the night sky like some monstrous beast reaching for the stars. The farm, his family's legacy, was burning, and with it, any semblance of safety they had left. James Brown didn't hesitate. He was already outside before the sirens even reached their ears, running toward the flames, his heart racing. Tariq followed, fear clawing at his chest, but his father's voice was steady. "Stay close, son. We'll get through this." But it wasn't just the fire that had him on edge. It was the way the fire had started, the accelerant used, the path it took. It was too precise, too deliberate. Someone wanted to destroy them, not just their farm, but everything they stood for. The fire department worked quickly, but by the time they put it out, the damage was done. Most of the barn was gone, the crops reduced to ashes. But the scariest part? The ominous note found on the property line. "Keep quiet, or this won't be the last time." James had seen that kind of threat before. He knew who was behind it. "Tariq, this isn't just about you. It's about the power they hold. People like Harris. This is bigger than a scholarship or an accusation. It's about control." Later that evening, when they were back in their small, dimly lit living room, Tariq's phone buzzed. It was a message from Ms. Henderson. "Meet me at the library tomorrow. We need to talk. Something's not right." But before he could even reply, his father spoke. "Number, we need to go to the authorities. We can't handle this alone anymore." Tariq's heart sank. He knew his father's resistance to getting the police involved. James had always been wary of the system, and with good reason. He wasn't wrong to feel distrustful, but the situation was spiraling, and they needed answers. Still, Tariq couldn't shake the thought of Ms. Henderson. She'd been his ally when no one else would. If she had something to say, it could be the key to everything. The next morning, they set out together to the library. But as they pulled up, something felt wrong. The place was eerily quiet, too quiet for a busy weekday. Tariq's gut twisted. And then he saw her. Miss Henderson was standing near the back entrance, talking to someone in a black suit. The man turned to face him, and for the first time in his life, Tariq felt the weight of an overwhelming presence. Like the man was a walking storm. His father, standing beside him, didn't speak a word, but his expression said everything. "We're not alone in this fight, son," James murmured, "but it's not going to be easy." Tariq's pulse quickened. The man in the suit wasn't just any stranger. He was someone connected to Harris, someone too important to ignore. Suddenly, the man took a step forward, his eyes cold, calculating. "Mr. Brown, I suggest you and your son stop this nonsense. You're about to dig into something you can't handle." Tariq stood frozen, but his father's voice broke the silence. "We're not backing down." The man's lips curled into a thin smile, and he turned away. "That's your choice, but just remember, there are consequences for choosing the wrong path." Tariq's fists clenched. This wasn't just about the farm anymore. This was a war, one that he wasn't sure they were ready for. But they had no choice now. It was too late to turn back. The days that followed were a blur of mounting pressure and uncertainty. Tariq and his father knew they couldn't face this alone any longer. The fire, the threats, the cold stare of the man in the suit. They were all part of something bigger. They had no idea just how deep the corruption went, but they were about to find out. Ms. Henderson had her own way of digging into things. She'd spent years as a teacher, but before that, she'd been an investigative journalist. What Tariq didn't know was that she'd been quietly gathering evidence, watching for patterns, tracing the ties between Principal Walker, Harris, and a network of powerful elites. That's when they discovered the truth. Jonathan Harris, the billionaire, wasn't just any businessman. He had his fingers in everything: education, politics, law enforcement. The fire on their farm was no random act. It was part of a plan to force James Brown into silence, to intimidate him into stepping aside so Harris could buy up the land for a new development project. The connection was undeniable. Harris had used his influence to push for Tariq's expulsion. He knew that a bright student like Tariq would be a thorn in his side, so he made sure he was removed from the equation. But it didn't stop there. There were others, local officials, community leaders, who were all in on it, protecting Harris, making sure his interests were never challenged. The discovery made Tariq's blood boil, but it also ignited something inside him, a fire of his own, one that couldn't be extinguished. With Ms. Henderson's help, they took the fight to the next level. Tariq, James, and their allies began collecting testimonies, photos, and documents that tied Harris and his network of corrupt elites to every piece of the conspiracy. But they weren't just exposing a few bad apples. They were unveiling an entire system built on exploitation and greed. It wasn't long before the FBI got involved. Investigations were launched, officials were called into question, and the truth slowly began to come to light. But even as their efforts gained momentum, the threats didn't stop. There were more fires, more intimidation, and a growing sense of danger hanging over their heads. Yet through it all, Tariq and his father remained resolute. They couldn't back down now. The weight of the community's hopes was on their shoulders, and they had the strength of their family to carry them forward. The final blow came when Harris was forced to step down, his empire crumbling under the weight of the evidence they had uncovered. His connections, once untouchable, were no longer enough to protect him. The power he had wielded for so long was finally shattered. In the end, Tariq didn't just win his fight for justice, he changed the system. He proved that even the smallest voice could make the biggest difference. And the farm, though scarred, was theirs to keep. As for the future, there was still a long road ahead. But Tariq knew one thing: as long as they stayed united, they could face anything. His journey was far from over, but he learned that the real power was in standing together, refusing to be silenced. And with that, Tariq Brown found his peace. If you believe in standing up for what's right and fighting for the voiceless, consider subscribing. The fight for justice doesn't end here, and there's another story waiting for you, one you won't want to miss.